So last night, you and I had a real moment of intense interaction.
Yeah.
This is a real truth. So our commitment has always been that we're going to allow you into the for real living room. We're not going to pretend like it's perfect. And so last night was pretty intense. And rather than it burning up and blowing up and all of that, we just decided to be quiet. In my time of quiet, I came to terms with this, Diana, that I am part of the problem. I'm a common denominator in the situation. And I think that's an issue with a lot of people in moments of friction that are not willing to accept I'm part of this problem. We always want to project it. And we're going to talk about that today in the living room. Welcome back.
Welcome back to the living room. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, welcome to the living room. Our commitment is this, to have real conversations for all the spaces and about all the spaces that we're living in. And our hope is to help you get further faster, whatever space of life that is. And we for real had a moment last night. We're not going to talk about what it was. I forgot to call. That's what it was. I forgot to call. We had a situation where I was out somewhere with the girls and Diana wasn't feeling well. And I thought I was helping out by just leaving you alone, blah, blah, blah. And somewhere along the line, we got our communication mixed up and I apparently committed to something that I don't necessarily remember, but I dropped the ball, didn't meet my commitment, and it was what it was. And I wanted to be mad about it. You were upset. You weren't mad. You weren't ugly about it, but you were tracking one way. I was tracking a different way. And I'm really proud of us. I'm proud that we didn't get into ugly. We were intense, but it wasn't ugly. It wasn't, at each other's throats. But then we decided to give each other a little bit of space. And if you go listen to, I think it's early episodes, How to Fight Right, you'll hear how we talk, how we discuss giving each other space. Anyway, in my processing, I discovered, I've always known this. I know this, but I really came to terms that, I'm a common denominator in this equation.
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget to look inward in any situation that you have friction in, whether it's marriage, dating, friendships, even parents, kids. Sometimes it's our fault. A lot of the times it's our fault. Yeah. And I don't think we are ever taught ownership. I think you taught me that, honestly. I think you taught me how to take ownership, and I didn't even understand the concept. I was like, well, you're wrong. And you're supposed to apologize. Yeah. And we went around in circles, and we still do sometimes, where we don't really realize that, okay, if we're having a discussion, it's usually both of our faults in that discussion. Yeah. And how do you take ownership?
Sorry. I jumped right into you. My fault. I'm sorry. No. I'm taking ownership.
No, I'm just saying, I think in our dynamic, you taught me that. Yeah. So how did you realize that that's something that you're supposed to do?
No, look, I think at some point, I can talk to you about the books I read, the development I received, but all of that is just data.
Yeah.
Right. And all of that is insight. And this is something that I teach as many people that will listen to me, that insight does not lead to change. Knowledge doesn't lead to change. It's applied insight, applied knowledge that becomes wisdom, right? When you apply the insight. So, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and, oh man, I forgot the co-writer's name, right? But you can read about that in there and it's everywhere. Ownership. Hey, you got to own it. And it's honestly, it's not a complex, wow, mind-blowing principle. It's a very simple principle that's hard to do. It's hard to take ownership.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah, it's simple. It's a simple thing, but it's not easy. It's hard. Why? Because when I take ownership, I'm saying I'm responsible for this dysfunction too. And here's the thing, in moments of intense interaction, right? When I say intense, I mean we're in a disagreement, we're annoyed with each other, we're aggravated, we're I'm mad.
Yeah, emotions are emotioning.
Yes. In those moments, what often one of us or both of us want to do is say I'm right. Yeah. I'm right. Okay. So when you take ownership, however, you say I'm right, but I also realize that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right. To me, in those moments, ownership says I'm right in this case, but I'm also aware that I'm wrong in another place, because this wouldn't be happening if I was right all the way. Obviously, I did something wrong that rubbed you the wrong way. I did something wrong. I did something, and wrong isn't like egregious, right? Wrong isn't outrageous. Wrong isn't always fully disrespectful, and I'm breaking the vows of our marriage, blah blah blah. Wrong is simply I made a mistake. Wrong is I made a bad call. I made a bad decision.
It does take humility though, because every time I take ownership, it feels like humility.
Hey, I love how you say it sometimes, right? It's like, it's not humility unless it feels like I'm being humbled right now.
So I think that's a good principle for you to like realize, like if you're trying to practice taking ownership, like it feels like you're being humble. Like I can totally tell you exactly when I feel like I'm taking ownership of something, because I don't know, I feel like I just sit down. Like I don't even know how to explain it. But
hold on. Okay, you just said I don't know how to explain it, but I want you to explain it. That is so interesting to me.
No,
what do you mean?
for
Like
me,
you sit down.
even when
Okay, was that a Kendrick Lamar reference? Like sit down, be humble.
That's literally how it feels to me. That's why I didn't like it, because I felt like when we're having these conversations, I'm standing up and I'm like proving my point. But when you taught me how to take ownership, I literally feel like I'm sitting down. Like I sit down, I breathe out, I disarm and say, you know what? I'm wrong. You're right in this. And that's how it feels to me. Like I just took a seat.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. If I would add anything to that, it would be the perspective of I'm right and I'm wrong. Because what ownership doesn't make you do is release the places where you are right. Right? Ownership is, think about it, right? Like ownership means it's the whole thing, right? I'm the proprietor. I'm responsible for the whole thing. I'm the owner, right? If I'm not the owner, I'm responsible for like a delegated thing or whatever. But when I'm the owner, it's the whole thing's on me. And I think when you apply it to this context of conflict, right? It's really understanding, I'm responsible for the whole thing. And I'm not just responsible. Think about this. I'm not just responsible for this fight. I'm responsible for our life. I'm responsible for our relationship. I'm responsible for this moment. I'm responsible for taking responsibility and taking accountability for what just happened in the few moments ago that made us get to this moment. And I'm also responsible for the things that we're going towards for our future, right? And so I think what happens a lot of times is we don't see ourselves in those moments as full. We don't see the fullness of what we own. We just see these moments of what I want to be entitled to. And sometimes I will release and I will abdicate my ownership because I just want gratification in the moment.
Yeah. Well, I think coming back to that analogy, you're absolutely right. But I think the sit down part is actually like going to a place of like, okay, let's sit down and have this conversation. I'm owning this whole conversation now by sitting down. Let's take a seat. Let's have this conversation, instead of being that person of like instant gratification, pointing the finger, standing up, wagging over you.
Right.
So I thought that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I think, again, coming back to this thought, right? Like yesterday, as when we gave each other space, usually I process, if I'm being like fully transparent in the living room, right? Here we go. We're going to always commit to real conversations. I process in how I'm going to litigate where I was right.
Okay.
Right? Like I'm building my case. And what I'm doing in there is I'm convincing myself that none of this is my fault. Right? I'm building a case that none of this is my fault. I'm completely untouched in this. But again, something went wrong. I was involved. So I am a common denominator here. It doesn't change. There's a lot of different variables, but the fact that I'm involved doesn't change. I can't take away the fact that I was involved in that interaction. And because I was involved in that interaction and that interaction ended up in a place that went sideways, I have to take responsibility and I have to be honest that I was part of the problem. And so I think that right there is a big it's a big thing for people because we don't like the feeling. This is a cool thought, and I think it'll lead to a cool question. We don't like the feeling of being either the victim or getting the lesser portion of a deal. I'm not trying to get the bad end of the deal here. I don't want the short end of the stick here. And we fight to be right instead of working to be owners.
Yeah, that's good.
There's a big difference. So like, why do you think like when we interact, I have some ideas as to why I do, but like in your moments where you resist ownership, right? Where you resist saying, no, I'm not part of this equation. It's like, no, yeah, you are. Why do you think some of us resist that ownership? Like why, like quote unquote, the short end of the stick? Like what are some of the liabilities or the threats? Why do we feel that way?
I think for me, it could be like, I need to be heard. And if I don't plead my case, I won't be heard.
Yeah, that's very good.
That's a big thing for me. So I feel like, okay, well, if I'm not right, then I'm not heard, which is 100% wrong because you can't be always right.
Yeah.
So usually in situations, once I started understanding, okay, if I take ownership on this, it'll literally bring us to a level playing field where we can have the conversation where we can both be heard.
Absolutely.
And not be selfish and just think, oh, I just need to be heard in this moment.
Yeah. I love it. I love that you said that. And I love what it made me think, right? Because I think when you take ownership and when you admit I'm part of this equation, it allows you to be right the right way and to be wrong the right way. Right? Because you can be right the wrong way, Yeah,
and it's still strife and we're still annoyed and we still got nowhere.
No, yeah, no, I think when you're right the wrong way and I'm like, ooh, I won the argument. Okay, you won the argument, but you lost the moment. And the moment was you had an opportunity to understand deeper. The moment was you had an opportunity to extend grace and love, right? In the moment you had the opportunity to bind closer. Instead, we went for the cheap thing. We went for the low-lying fruit by winning the fight, but losing the moment, right? And I think sometimes you can be right the wrong way, right? And so, there are times where you're right, I'm right, however it goes. But man, I did it the wrong way. I lorded it over you. I humiliated you in that, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and so, that issue will never get resolved.
The root cause of it. The root cause of it will never get resolved. Absolutely. And I think really having this honest perspective that like, no matter how I paint this picture, again, I'm part of the equation. I'm part of the problem. And ownership allows me to say, let me have the humility to be right the right way.
Yeah, it's
right.
Good.
Look, let me help you see my perspective and then serve you in your perspective. Right. And then it allows me to be wrong the right way, to have the humility to say, you know what, you're right, I was wrong. Let me explain to you, or let me give you an understanding as to why I approached it this way and why I thought this was the right way to go. And in that, even as I'm wrong, the right thing can happen.
Yeah, that's good.
And so I think being an owner, it's honestly, there's the principle here really comes down to like the business concept of being an owner, right? Like when you're an owner, you deal with the highs and the lows when you're an owner. Like when you're just an employee.
You're just not going to throw away your restaurant or throw away your product.
Sure.
You really want to salvage it.
Sure.
So you want to understand it.
Yeah.
You're the owner, you're in charge. Okay, how do I understand this so it can get better?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to add to that, right, you're responsible. You get the highs, you get like as the owner, you get, man, like the shine, you get the accolades. But as an owner, you also have to deal with the stuff that no one wants to deal with. Like no one else is coming, man. Like you are the owner of the enterprise. It's on you. If your employees don't show up, if your staff doesn't show up, it doesn't matter. Someone has to come and do the thing no one wants to do, right? And so I think for you and I, we have to come to terms, right? Like we're learning. I think we're learning to master it, that we are owners of the enterprise of Ramirez Inc., right? Where man, I can't just like dump it on you and be like, well, there it is, deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, bro.
No, we tried. That didn't work.
For real. At the end of the day, we're partners in this, right?
And at the end of the day, like, I truly love you and I care for your heart. Like, I really do.
Thank you.
And I really want us to have like a resolution.
Sure.
And that resolution to me isn't screaming and fighting and not talking to each other. That is not a resolution.
I agree. That's not resolution, and that's not at all the outcomes that will ever be joyful and
fruitful,
edifying and fruitful. Right? It might be a win, but it's a cheap win, and it's just not good. Yeah, I think. Yesterday you and I had that moment, and then about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I went and I humbled myself, and I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to explain. And I think together we partnered as owners, and you took some responsibility as well.
For sure.
And today our enterprise is better because we owned it
yesterday,
right? We owned it. And I think that as you guys are listening to this, as you're processing through this, I think the challenge is like, stop acting like a staff person, right? And I think, stop acting like an employee. I think especially in marriage context, too often we'll leverage, well, I'll just quit, right? And we will,
and
it's
you
not
can.
And it's not that language. It's not that language, right? The language is like, well, then let's just get divorced, right? But like, why are you going to quit over like, I dropped a plate, like it's not like it's not quit worthy. Like, stop acting like a baby and own it, man. You be an owner here, right? Own the life, own the marriage, own the responsibility, own the relationship, own the parenting, own the destiny. Like, come on, let's go, take it on, right? Let's not just, I don't want to just be an employee of in our marriage and in our home. I mean, I want to behave like an owner, and owners take it all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's something that's really helpful for us for all the spaces that we're living in, right? Something that blesses me often is that even if I don't own it, I'm going to act like I do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lead like I do, and I'm going to serve like I do, and I'm going to care, and I'm going to lean in like I do, because that's who I am. That's who you are, right? And so wherever we are, we do our very best to own the thing. Now, sometimes we got to come back and we got to sing Taylor Swift for our repentance song, right?
Yeah.
The answer, you're like, hi, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm the problem, right?
It's me.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's it's a short thought, but it's a really powerful principle, a really powerful concept that if you apply it, life can change so drastically, right?
Right.
Okay. Very good. Well, y'all, this was a quick one, but it was something that we wanted to get out because in the spaces that we're living in, this principle has completely recharged and reinvigorated and really just revolutionized how we interact, not just as husband and wife, but how we interact as friends, how we interact as leaders, as parents. Ownership is a beautiful thing. So
ownership
come on now,
takes maturity.
Yeah. So listen, y'all are owners. Y'all aren't just called to do this part-time. Like your marriage, your future, your destiny, your calling, your purpose, all of it. Be an owner. Be an owner. And it starts with that honest take. Yeah, I'm always going to be part of this equation. No matter what, I'm going to be a part of this equation. If my name's involved, if my presence is included, I'm part of this equation. I can't escape it. So yeah, it was a good talk. Thanks for jumping in the living room with us. It's always such a joy and a privilege to be able to speak to you guys. Listen, as we tell you always, please. I sound like I'm begging. I shouldn't be begging you, fam. Let's go. For those of you that have already subscribed, thank you, man. Like, we're so grateful. But so many of y'all watch this content and you don't subscribe. It would mean the world for you to subscribe, for you to share this, for you to like it. It tells the algorithm, hey, people want this. And I don't know about you, but I think this is helping people all over the place, right? So help us in the living room. Help us spread this across the World Wide Web. Anyway, turn on that bell notification. We do our very best to drop every single week. Go connect with us on social media, on Instagram, so you can follow along what's going on in our other spaces of life. And our Instagram handles are in the description of the video. And so thanks for jumping in. I hope this was helpful for you. Until next time.